No blocking, no begging, just do this, and avoidance will chase you non-stop. Let's start with a truth that might feel uncomfortable, but it's powerful once you really hear it. The more you try to force closeness from someone emotionally avoidant, the further away they go. Not because you're unworthy, not because you're doing something wrong as a person, but because pressure is the very thing their nervous system is trained to escape. Most people respond to distance with panic. They text more, they explain more, they ask for reassurance, they wait by the phone, they replay conversations, they try to fix the connection by proving how caring, patient, or understanding they can be. And all of this feels logical. After all, if you care, you show it, right? But with avoidant personalities, logic doesn't win. Safety does. Avoidants are not afraid of love. They're afraid of losing themselves in it. They associate closeness with obligation, expectations, and the fear of being trapped. So when they sense emotional chasing, even subtle chasing, it confirms their deepest fear and triggers withdrawal. Here's the mistake most people make. They think the solution is to block, disappear dramatically, or play games. But that's not growth. That's another form of reaction. Blocking is still about control. Begging is still about fear. Both are driven by the same energy. Please choose me so I can feel okay. What actually changes everything is when you stop centering your behavior around their emotional availability and start centering it around your own self-respect. The shift is simple but not easy. You stop over-explaining, over-initiating, and over-investing. Not to punish them, not to teach them a lesson, but because you no longer abandon yourself to maintain a connection, you become calm, consistent, grounded. You respond instead of react. You don't disappear, but you don't hover either. You match effort naturally without resentment. You let silence exist without filling it with anxiety. You allow space without interpreting it as rejection. And most importantly, you live a full, emotionally rich life that doesn't pause waiting for someone else to decide how they feel. This is where something fascinating happens. Avoidants are used to being the ones who pull away while the other person pursues. That dynamic keeps them in control. But when the pursuit disappears, without drama, without ultimatums, without emotional collapse, the balance shifts. They start to feel the absence not as relief, but as loss. Because now, instead of feeling chased, they feel invited. Instead of feeling pressure, they feel curiosity. Instead of feeling trapped, they feel choice. You see, avoidants don't chase chaos. They chase emotional safety paired with independence. They are drawn to people who don't need them, but genuinely want them. People who can stand firmly in their own worth and still offer connection without demand. When you stop begging for reassurance, you communicate confidence. When you stop trying to control outcomes, you communicate trust. When you stop centering your happiness on their behavior, you communicate value, and value is magnetic. This doesn't mean suppressing your needs. It means expressing them clearly once without over-negotiating your worth. It means being willing to walk away emotionally if consistency doesn't show up, instead of threatening to leave in hopes they'll change. Ironically, the moment you become okay either way, whether they step closer or not, is the moment avoidants often step forward. Not because you manipulated them, but because you became emotionally secure. And emotional security is the one thing avoidants are constantly searching for, even if they don't consciously realize it. So no blocking, no begging, no chasing, just self-respect, emotional regulation, and a quiet confidence that says, I choose connection, but I don't sacrifice myself for it. That energy doesn't push people away. It pulls the right ones closer and keeps you whole no matter the outcome. Chasing someone emotionally is one of the most common mistakes people make when trying to connect with someone who tends to be avoidant. It seems natural. If someone pulls away, we lean in. If they seem distant, we try harder. We text more, call more, over-explain our feelings, and look for ways to prove our worth. Every instinct tells us that if we just do a little more, say a little more, or care a little more, we can bridge the gap and bring them closer. But with avoidance, this pattern backfires in a profound way. The very act of chasing, no matter how loving, patient, or reasonable it seems, creates pressure. And pressure is the trigger that pushes avoidance away. It's not that they don't care or that they're incapable of affection. It's that their nervous system perceives closeness under pressure as a threat. When someone is used to retreating from intimacy, even subtle signals of pursuit, like repeated messages or overanalysis, are interpreted as signs that the relationship might become constraining, overwhelming, or suffocating. The more someone chases, the more the avoidant's fear of being trapped is confirmed, and instinctively they pull back to preserve their sense of autonomy. This is not a judgment of their character, it's a predictable psychological response. Chasing communicates need, and need implies dependency. Avoidants often equate dependency with loss of freedom, and loss of freedom triggers withdrawal. Many people misunderstand this dynamic because, in typical social interactions, persistence is often rewarded. If someone is hesitant or slow to respond in most contexts, showing extra care or initiative can make them feel valued and eventually bring them closer. But avoidants are wired differently. Their internal map of relationships is tied to independence first and closeness second. Pursuit activates the part of their brain that wants to protect themselves from feeling controlled or cornered. Even if the pursuer's intentions are pure, the avoidant experiences an unconscious sense of encroachment. That's why chasing doesn't work with them. It reinforces the exact behavior the pursuer wants to avoid. The irony is that the more someone chases, the more the avoidant retreats, which can create a feedback loop. The pursuer becomes more anxious and persistent, and the avoidant responds by distancing even further. This escalation continues until one or both parties feel frustrated, exhausted, and misunderstood. Understanding this dynamic is critical because it shifts the focus from trying to force connection to creating the conditions for natural attraction. Instead of chasing, the most effective approach is to slow down, step back, and allow the avoidant space to feel safe. Space doesn't mean emotional abandonment. It means giving them the freedom to engage on their own terms. When they are not under pressure, their curiosity and desire can naturally emerge. They begin to chase in response to emotional safety, rather than retreat in response to fear. This is a subtle but powerful difference. Chasing is rooted in scarcity, the fear of losing someone or the need to be chosen. Stepping back, on the other hand, communicates confidence, self-respect, and emotional security. Avoidants are not repelled by genuine connection, they are repelled by the pressure to connect in a way that threatens their independence. By understanding this, people can stop misinterpreting withdrawal as rejection, stop trying to fix what isn't broken, and start focusing on being present, consistent, and grounded. This shift eliminates the frantic energy that drives the avoidant away and replaces it with calm energy that naturally draws them in. In essence, chasing creates the exact opposite of desire, while space and confidence create conditions for curiosity and attraction. When people feel emotionally threatened by an avoidant partner, their first instinct is often to try to regain control. This manifests as blocking, withdrawing, or begging for reassurance, actions that seem like they should protect the relationship, but in reality, they are both reactive and counterproductive. Blocking, for example, is often seen as a way to create leverage or send a message: if you don't value me, I can walk away. It might feel empowering in the moment, but underneath it is still fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being ignored, fear of not being chosen. When someone blocks or disappears to make the avoidant chase them, it's still a strategy driven by insecurity rather than confidence. Similarly, begging or pleading for attention comes from a place of scarcity. It communicates, I need you to feel okay about me. My happiness depends on your actions. This is the same energy that chasing produces, just in reverse. Instead of physically pursuing, you're emotionally pleading, but the underlying message is identical. Please validate me so I can feel safe. Both blocking and begging are attempts to manipulate or control the other person's behavior. Blocking is a weapon of control. Begging is a surrender of control. Neither arises from self-respect. The problem is that avoidants are highly sensitive to any emotional imbalance. They are drawn to people who are secure and independent, not to those who are reacting out of fear. When they perceive desperation, manipulation, or emotional instability, even subtle cues, they instinctively step back. This is not personal, it's their survival mechanism. Emotional independence, calmness, and groundedness are far more attractive than ultimatums or emotional pressure. What most people don't realize is that the behaviors of blocking and begging, while seemingly opposite, come from the same root, losing yourself in the pursuit of someone else's attention or affection. Blocking is about creating drama to test loyalty or spark a response. Begging is about surrendering yourself to ensure connection. Both signal a lack of inner stability. Avoidants, who prioritize autonomy and self-regulation, detect this imbalance immediately. They do not respond to manipulation or panic with closeness, they respond with withdrawal. The key is to shift from reactive behaviors to proactive self-regulation. Instead of using actions like blocking or pleading as tools to get them to chase, the focus should be on creating emotional stability within yourself. This involves knowing your worth, setting clear boundaries, and understanding that your happiness is not contingent on their immediate behavior. When you operate from this place of security, you stop playing games, you stop threatening or begging, and you stop creating emotional chaos. You communicate value naturally, without trying to manufacture it. This does not mean suppressing your needs or pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It means expressing your feelings clearly, calmly, and once, and then stepping back without anxiety about the outcome. You honor yourself and your time, and you stop using reactive strategies as a way to manipulate connection. Ironically, the moment you stop reacting out of fear, the dynamic shifts. Avoidants are drawn to people who are emotionally secure because they create a sense of safety without suffocating or controlling them. The lack of drama, the absence of panic, and the presence of self-respect communicate confidence and value in ways that no ultimatum or plea ever could. When you understand that blocking and begging come from the same place, the place of fear and insecurity, you can stop wasting energy on behavior that push avoidance away. Instead, you can focus on behaviors that cultivate natural attraction, mutual respect, and genuine curiosity. This is how relationships with avoidance transform. When the reactive energy is replaced by grounded confidence, when fear is replaced by self-respect, and when the need to control is replaced by the ability to trust in your own worth. The real transformation in any relationship with an avoidant partner doesn't come from manipulation, chasing, or trying to force someone to be emotionally available. It comes from emotional self-regulation, your ability to remain calm, grounded, and consistent, regardless of the other person's behavior. Most people underestimate how magnetic this quality can be because we are so conditioned to respond to emotions with emotion. When someone withdraws, the instinct is to react, text more, call more, explain ourselves, or seek reassurance. But reaction is not influence. Reaction is chaos. It communicates neediness, anxiety, and a lack of inner control. Avoidants, whose primary instinct is to protect their independence, are highly sensitive to this kind of energy. They may not consciously recognize why they pull back, but instinctively they retreat from what feels emotionally destabilizing. Emotional self-regulation flips the script entirely. Instead of reacting, you respond. Instead of chasing, you observe. Instead of surrendering your well-being to the uncertainty of someone else's feelings, you anchor yourself in your own stability. This doesn't mean being cold or detached. It means being fully present, consistent, and confident in your value. It means showing up without being consumed by the outcome. When you regulate your emotions, you create space for the avoidant to feel safe. They no longer perceive your presence as pressure, but as a calm, steady invitation to connect. That stability is what the subconsciously crave but rarely encounter, because most people meet their withdrawal with more intensity, more chasing, more panic. Emotional self-regulation communicates several key messages simultaneously. First, it signals self-respect. When you do not overreact to withdrawal, it shows that your sense of worth does not depend on someone else's constant validation. Second, it communicates security. Avoidants are drawn to people who can hold themselves steady without being swept into chaos, who can experience intimacy without fear or overdependence. Third, it demonstrates authenticity. When you respond instead of react, When you maintain calm and consistency, you are no longer performing for attention or approval. You are simply being yourself. This creates curiosity. Avoidants who are used to fleeing from intensity begin to notice a different kind of energy, one that is magnetic precisely because it is not frantic. The paradox is that when you stop trying to influence or control, you become influential naturally. People who chase or manipulate are essentially saying, "You determine my happiness," which triggers withdrawal. But people who regulate themselves are saying, "I am whole with or without your response," which triggers interest. Emotional self-regulation also protects you from burnout. Chasing someone who is avoidant can be exhausting. You may find yourself constantly worrying, overanalyzing, or trying to solve problems that aren't yours to solve. By shifting to self-regulation, you reclaim your energy. You stop investing emotional labor where it isn't reciprocated and redirect it to your own growth and fulfillment. This shift is not about suppressing feelings. It's about feeling them fully and choosing how to act in alignment with your highest self. You may experience disappointment or longing, and that is natural. But instead of reacting with panic or desperation, you acknowledge your emotions and maintain your boundaries. This approach fundamentally changes the dynamic with avoidance. They are no longer being chased, pressured, or manipulated. Instead, they encounter a calm, confident person who offers connection without demand, who values themselves and communicates clearly, and who does not collapse under uncertainty. That is magnetic. That is the essence of emotional self-regulation. It transforms how you are perceived, how you feel, and ultimately how relationships unfold. When you master this skill, you stop spinning in cycles of anxiety and instead create a space where connection can happen naturally, authentically, and sustainably. Avoidants are not attracted to drama, panic, or emotional dependency. What draws them in is a combination of independence and warmth, a balance that is easier to understand than to master. Many people make the mistake of assuming that closeness requires chasing, pleading, or sacrificing themselves to prove their value. But avoidants see through these behaviors immediately. They are wired to notice pressure, neediness, and attempts to control, and their natural response is to withdraw. The paradox is that the very traits that push them away over pursuit, over investment, and desperation are often the same traits that people mistakenly believe will make them more attractive. In reality, avoidants are drawn to people who live full lives of their own, who have their own passions, friendships, and boundaries, and who can offer connection without depending on it for validation. Independence in this context doesn't mean coldness or detachment. It means self-respect. It means having a life and a sense of identity that isn't contingent on another person's behavior or availability. Warmth, on the other hand, is the ability to be emotionally present without pressure, to offer kindness and affection without expectation or manipulation. Avoidants respond positively to people who can be both grounded and inviting, people who communicate interest without anxiety. This creates what can feel almost magnetic to them, a safe space to engage without losing autonomy. When someone combines independence with warmth, they demonstrate that they are not desperate or dependent, but still capable of genuine connection. Avoidants, who are used to fleeing when feeling trapped, begin to feel curiosity instead of fear. They are drawn to the freedom that comes with interacting with someone secure and confident. The key difference between someone who pushes avoidance away and someone who draws them in is the energy they project. Neediness, panic, or the compulsion to control is experienced as pressure, and pressure triggers withdrawal. Emotional security, consistency, and calm presence is experienced as safety, and safety triggers curiosity and interest. Avoidants are looking for people who can hold their own emotional space while offering connection, not those who abandon themselves for connection. This is why it is so crucial to understand that attraction is not just about behaviors, but about energy. Someone who is emotional. Lie grounded communicates value in every action, in every pause, in every response. They don't have to chase or plead because their confidence naturally encourages the avoidant to step closer on their own terms. This approach also allows for clarity and boundaries. By living independently while expressing warmth, you make your needs clear without over-negotiating your worth. Avoidants respect people who can set boundaries calmly because it communicates that you are self-aware, confident, and not reactive to their distance. In contrast, when people overinvest or become anxious about avoidance, they unintentionally reinforce the avoidant's fears of closeness. Independence paired with warmth flips the dynamic. Instead of creating pressure, you create space. Instead of signaling need, you signal value. Instead of demanding attention, you offer an invitation. The avoidant is free to engage, to explore, and to step closer voluntarily. This combination of traits is not about manipulation or strategy. It is about becoming a fully realized, grounded, and emotionally secure person. It's about being someone who is attractive because of your own stability, rather than someone who relies on drama or chasing to generate interest. When you embody independence with warmth, the avoidant dynamic shifts naturally. Curiosity replaces avoidance, and the connection begins to grow on a foundation of trust and respect rather than pressure and fear. Ultimately, this balance is what transforms relationships with avoidance from cycles of chase and withdrawal into relationships built on authentic attraction and mutual respect. When you stop abandoning yourself for someone else's attention, the dynamic with avoidance changes in ways that most people never anticipate. Many individuals approach relationships with the idea that their job is to manage the other person's feelings, to chase them, to fix their distance, or to constantly reassure them. But when you shift your focus from trying to control their behavior to honoring your own self-respect, everything changes. Avoidants are drawn to people who are emotionally secure because security communicates stability, confidence, and value. When you no longer overinvest your energy into chasing or pleading, you communicate without words that your sense of worth is intact regardless of the other person's actions. This is powerful because avoidants are naturally cautious. They are wired to pull away when they feel pressure or unpredictability. Chasing or clinging feeds that instinct and triggers withdrawal. But when you maintain your emotional integrity, you remove the pressure entirely. You no longer need them to validate your worth, and that freedom shifts the energy in the relationship. Suddenly, rather than feeling trapped or overwhelmed, the avoidant experiences curiosity, interest, and the subtle pull of attraction. Maintaining self-respect doesn't mean ignoring the avoidant or suppressing your emotions. It means being clear about your needs, expressing them calmly, and then stepping back without anxiety. It means saying, "This is what I value, this is how I feel, and I will hold to that without compromising my integrity." This communicates confidence in a way that pleading or chasing never can. When you are willing to stand firm in your worth, you create a natural shift in the dynamic. The avoidant is no longer the one with all the power in the interaction. They are drawn to someone who is balanced, grounded, and independent, a person who does not need them to feel complete, but genuinely enjoys their presence. This approach also eliminates the emotional exhaustion that comes from overinvesting. Chasing avoidance can be draining, leaving you anxious, frustrated, and depleted. But by centering yourself and your life, you reclaim your energy. You no longer invest it in reactive behaviors. Instead, you invest it in yourself, your passions, and your fulfillment. This is magnetic in ways that manipulation never is. Avoidants are naturally curious about people who live fully, who value themselves, and who bring warmth without desperation. That curiosity transforms avoidance into engagement. Importantly, this doesn't guarantee that the avoidant will change overnight or respond exactly how you hope. Emotional security is not a tool for manipulation. It is a way to interact with authenticity and confidence. You become attractive not by trying to control the outcome, but by being whole in your own right. Over time, this grounded energy encourages avoidance to engage more consistently because it creates safety without restriction. You stop reacting to their distance with panic and start responding with calmness. You stop measuring your worth by their behavior and start living in alignment with your own values. That is the essence of self-respect, the ability to maintain your boundaries, honor your needs, and create a life that feels complete regardless of another person's choices. When avoidants encounter someone who operates from this place, they often find themselves drawn in naturally. They beg in to pursue because the relationship feels secure and inviting, not because they are being pressured or manipulated. The energy you project becomes magnetic because it is rooted in authenticity, confidence, and emotional stability. By choosing yourself first and refusing to abandon your own standards for connection, you shift the dynamic entirely. The avoidance interest follows not because of chasing or begging, but because your emotional independence creates curiosity, trust, and respect, laying the foundation for a healthier, more sustainable connection. Emotional security is the single most magnetic quality you can cultivate when dealing with avoidant personalities. It is not about being perfect, withholding feelings, or pretending that you are unaffected by the ups and downs of connection. Emotional security is about being grounded in your own worth and maintaining inner stability regardless of external circumstances. Many people fall into the trap of thinking that in order to make an avoidant partner feel close, they must chase, beg, or manipulate. They believe that if they just act in the right way, say the right words, or overcompensate in their care, they will earn attention or commitment. But avoidants are sensitive to emotional imbalance. They do not respond to frantic pursuit or emotional instability with closeness. They respond to calmness, consistency, and confidence. This is where emotional security becomes transformative. When you are secure, you communicate through your energy rather than your words. You show that you are whole, that your happiness and self-worth do not hinge on someone else's validation. This removes the pressure that typically triggers avoidance. Avoidants are accustomed to encountering neediness and panic, and it often triggers their flight response. But when you are grounded and secure, you offer a different experience, one where connection feels safe rather than suffocating. Emotional security allows you to respond rather than react. You can acknowledge your emotions without letting them control your behavior. You can express your needs clearly without over-negotiating or begging. You can maintain boundaries without feeling guilty or desperate. This level of emotional self-regulation is incredibly magnetic because it communicates value without demand. Avoidants are naturally drawn to people who can hold themselves steady in the face of uncertainty because that steadiness signals safety. Safety, in turn, allows curiosity and attraction to grow organically. Another key aspect of emotional security is its ability to break the cycle of chasing and withdrawal. Many relationships with avoidance are stuck in a pattern where the secure partner chases and the avoidant retreats, creating anxiety, frustration, and exhaustion. Emotional security interrupts this cycle. When you operate from a place of calm confidence, the avoidant can step closer without feeling trapped or pressured. The relationship dynamic shifts naturally because the energy that previously created withdrawal is replaced by energy that encourages engagement. Importantly, emotional security is not about suppressing vulnerability. It is about feeling deeply but responding wisely. You can care, you can love, and you can desire intimacy without letting your emotional state become dependent on another person's actions. This balance between presence and independence is what creates genuine attraction. It is not about games or manipulation. It is about authenticity combined with confidence. When you embody emotional security, you stop chasing outcomes and start being present in the moment. You stop trying to control someone else's feelings and start controlling your own reactions. This creates a magnetic energy because avoidants, who often fear are being overwhelmed, are drawn to the calm, confident presence of someone who does not need them but genuinely wants to be with them. Over time, this creates the conditions for more consistent engagement. Avoidants begin to approach and invest in the relationship voluntarily, not because they are forced, pressured, or guilted into it. Emotional security is the ultimate foundation for healthy connection with avoidants. It allows you to remain whole regardless of their behavior while still offering warmth, clarity, and presence. It communicates self-respect, trust, and value without demand, which is precisely what attracts avoidance in a sustainable and meaningful way. By cultivating emotional security, you shift from a reactive, anxious dynamic to one of calm confidence and mutual respect, creating a relationship environment where connection happens naturally, authentically, and magnetically. In conclusion, mastering your own emotional security, maintaining self-respect, and creating space without chasing or pleading is not just a strategy. It's a transformation that naturally draws avoidance closer while keeping you whole. By centering your life around confidence, consistency, and genuine presence, you invite connection without pressure and create the kind of attraction that lasts. Thank you all for listening, for being open to this perspective, and for taking the first steps toward healthier, more empowered relationships.